So we're in Esther 3. It's really a unique chapter because, there's a word that we throw around a lot in our culture, like everybody that we don't agree with is a Hitler. Like, oh, it's just Hitler up there, And the problem with using that word a lot to describe people we don't agree with is that we don't recognize a real Hitler when we see one. And here is a Hitler before the Hitler that we know. And his name is Haman, and we're introduced to him in Esther chapter 3. So the message today the title of the message is Pray for Godly Leaders. So it's kind of an odd, maybe thing to think about, but boy, it is really important that we are led by godly people. And if you read through the Old Testament and you see that when the people are led by godly people, the nation flourishes. When the people are led by evil people, the nations fall apart. And even if you go through the book of Judges, which is that the people really rebelled against God and went their own way and did what they wanted to do and set up leaders who would kind of tell them what they wanted to hear, then God would punish them. Then God would have to raise up this leader that would then help them get out of the mess that they had made. I'm a big believer in that everything in life rises and falls on good leadership. So everything rises and falls on leadership. And that's why we take seriously, who we choose as leaders here. That's why we just don't put somebody into a position because maybe they want to do it, but we want to know their heart. We want to hear what they have to say. That's why we take a little bit of time to process who we put in a position of leadership. And I think because godly leaders are really important. I think the future of the church depends on it, and I think the future of our nation honestly depends on it. And we are able to participate in that process. That's why I encourage all of you to participate in the political process. Now, the problem is that we become dominated by the political process, and then we put our hope in the political process, and we think that this is going to be the thing that's going to save us. Well, the only thing that's going to save us is Jesus, okay? So politicians, right or left, good or bad, ultimately, they're under the control of God, and that's what we're going to really kind of end with today. But I want to kind of show you in this text why we want to pray that God would give us godly leaders, men who seek God and want to do what is right. Because there is 6 things you're going to notice in this passage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the points, and then we're just going to walk through the passage because I don't have time to read it and then talk about it. I'm going to talk about it while I'm giving you the points, okay? Number 1, if you promote an evil man, he will get proud. If you promote an evil man, he will get proud. So between chapter 2 and chapter 3, it's been 5 years. If you remember, between chapter 1 and chapter 2, it's 3 to 4 years. And now between 2 and 3, it's been 5 years. So Esther has been the queen now for 5 years. And it says, after these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman the Agagite. Now that name is important because when it says Agagite, this is the Amalekites. If you go back and do a little bit of your history as far as the nation of Israel, the Amalekites have always been a pain to the people of Israel. And that's why he's mentioned here that he is an Agagite, an Amalekite, the son of Hammedatha, and advanced him and set his throne above all the officials who were with him. So he's basically, Haman is second in command under King Ahasuerus. And it says, and all the king's servants who were at the king's gate bowed down and paid homage to Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. So if you promote an evil man, he will get proud. So he takes this man Haman and he puts him in second in command. And Haman, one of the things that he wants to happen now is he wants to now be not just shown respect, which I do believe that anybody that's in a position of authority should be shown respect. I think that's a biblical principle. You read the New Testament. This is why you may not agree with somebody politically, but you have a responsibility to be respectful to them. Okay? That's what the Bible teaches. Where people cross the line is when they want worship. Haman wanted to be worshiped. This wasn't a thing like, bowing down before the queen out of respect. This is, I want you to bow down when I come around because I'm like God. And this is what you tend to do when you learn a lot about people when you give them two things. One is money and two is power. You learn a lot about who the person is. And so we learn a lot about Haman in the fact that he desires to be worshiped. He desires for when he comes around, everybody get down on the ground, keeping everybody in their place. Bow down before me. And the truth is, having more money or power should make you more humble than proud. Because you acknowledge that all of this wealth and all this power was given to me by a greater power, which is God in heaven. But what happens with a lot of people is they get the power and they become unbearable. And so if you have evil people, if you promote an evil man, he will get proud. And rather, if we pick the right kind of leaders, then they should grow more humble as the responsibility grows. With great privilege comes great responsibility. So a lot of people are like, I'd like to be in charge. Really? I mean, do you really want that? Because with great privilege comes great responsibility. And here's a man who is proud. He's a proud man. And when he gets put to this position, his pride really shows itself through in the fact that when I come into the room, I want people to bow. And that's what we get when we put an evil man in power. Their pride grows. The second thing I want you to notice, if you empower an evil man, he will encourage other evil men. So let's go back to our text in Esther 3. So we read 1 and 2. 3, or we didn't read all of 2, I guess. So the end of 2 says, but Mordecai did not bow down or pay homage. Why is that? Because he's a Jew and he believes what is taught in the scriptures, which is that you don't bow down to anybody but God. So he doesn't bow down. Now, so then it says in verse 3, then the king's servants who were at the king's gate said to Mordecai, why do you transgress the king's command? And when they spoke to him day after day and he would not listen to them, they told Haman in order to see whether Mordecai's words would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. So that all that language there is important because, remember, he's at the king's gate and he goes there almost every day. And why does he go there? Because he wants to find information about Esther, because he can't call her on the phone. He wants to see how she's doing. So he goes to the gate. Here comes Haman, who's now been put in second in command. He rides out of the gate probably almost every day. And, I see Mordecai as kind of in the background a little bit, but he won't bow down. He's not going to do what everybody else is doing. Well, this turns into frustration with the other guys that are there, because they're like, why aren't you bowing down? And when it says here that he told them that he was a Jew, he proudly explains to them, this is what I believe. I'm a Jew, and I believe that you shouldn't bow down to anybody but God. And they're having this discussion. And Haman desires to be worshipped, and Mordecai's like, I'm not going to worship Haman. What happens then is you get these guys who probably have, in a sense, no relationship with Haman, who become, I like to call them the fanboys. Haman's fanboys. In life, we have friends, and then we have people we're fans of. Be a friend more than a fan. Now, let me explain what I mean. We lose a lot of people. We lose friends over people we are fans of, which I think is ridiculous. Years ago when I was in college, I was riding with, I used to carpool with a guy that became a really good friend of mine. He pastors in Maryland now, and we carpooled together for 3 years. And I've always been a big sports fan, I always have. And so he was a sports fan, and we had an hour ride. So basically, we'd go to Kansas City every day. So my schedule is I used to go to classes in the morning. I would run to my car after my last class, and I had to be in Dyer, Indiana at 1:20 to meet Scott to drive an hour to up by O'Hare Airport, and then we would work from 2:30 to 11, come back. I'd stay up as long as I needed to do my homework, and then get up, go to classes the next day at 8. And I did this for 3 years. This is how I kind of got through my school. So Scott and I, we had an hour to ride together. And a lot of times the conversation would turn to sports. Well, at the time, Bobby Knight was the coach of Indiana, and Fisher, I don't remember his first name, was the coach of Michigan. I was a Bobby Knight guy. Scott was a Fisher guy, Like, I was like, Bobby Knight just coaches the right way, and blah, 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 blah. Well, he's abusing all these players is what I found out. So anyway, they were scared of him for sure. But anyway, so we'd get in these, and man, one night we're riding home, and I'm defending Bobby Knight, and I'm defending the Indiana program. I don't care about Indiana. I'm from Kansas. I don't care about this. But man, I'm defending, and man, it got really heated. Now, no punches were thrown in the car, but I remember it got really quiet, and we just sat in this car for like 30 minutes, and nobody said anything to anybody because we were just so mad at each other. And I remember sitting in that car thinking, what is wrong with me? If I needed help, if I called Bobby Knight, he would not return my call. Right? I'm a fan of the man, so to speak. I was at the time. But I'm going to lose this friend over this? This is dumb. If I'm having a bad day and need to talk to somebody, Bob Knight didn't take my call. Nor is any other celebrity for any of you in this room. Let's never forget that. So these guys are down here, and they're Haman fanboys, and here's Mordecai, who's a guy they spend time with every day, but they think somehow they're going to get on Haman's good side if they rag out Mordecai. One time I made the mistake in this pulpit, and I do call it a mistake on some level, of criticizing a political figure. And I had a man come up to me after that, and he said, if you're not with blank, I ain't with you. And I thought, are you kidding me? So I tried to explain my position, like why I said what I said. The man passed away, didn't have me do anything with his funeral. And I'm like, dude, I've been your pastor for like 10 years, but because a man who you don't even know, I said something somewhat disagreeing with him, now you're cutting me off? But that's what we do. We do this over celebrities, sports teams, institutions, government officials. Why? Look, I like Patrick Mahomes, but I ain't losing my friendship over you if you don't. If you like some other team, that's cool. I like Mahomes. It ain't worth fighting over because Mahomes don't care about me. The Chiefs organization don't care about me. Well, you're a Raider. I'm a Chief. I don't talk to Raider fans. What is wrong with us? Anyway, that was a little sidetrack there, but I think it's really important to say. Because what happens is you empower an evil man, other evil men step up to support that man. Let's not be dividers, let's be uniters. Let's bring people together, especially over things that really ultimately don't matter. So if you empower an evil man, he will encourage other youth. So that here they're running to Haman. Hey, it's like little kids, I'm telling on so-and-so. I'm telling on Mordecai. Which leads us to our third thing. If you ignore an evil man, he will get angry. Obviously, to this point, Haman hasn't noticed it. Because he's ridden in and out of that gate. And they've been having discussions for a long time. like day after day. So Mordecai's probably trying to make it settle. Like he's not trying to make a big deal about it. But, you know, have you ever, once something's been pointed out to you, you can't not see it. Just like FedEx. You know there's an arrow in the FedEx name? Once you see it, you cannot see it. I worked for that place for 4 years, and I was like, oh, there's an arrow. Somebody said, you know there's an arrow in our M? Oh, sure enough. Every time I look at it, I see it. But Haman's an evil man. So he's got all of these people that when he rides through the gate, they all bow down. But see, evil people are narcissistic. And one of the characteristics of good men is that they are grateful. So a good man finds a reason to be grateful even when things around him are bad. He focuses, or she focuses on the positives when surrounded by negatives. But evil people who are narcissistic are not that way. All they focus on is, there's one guy standing right over there who won't bow to me. He's overlooking the hundreds that are and is locked in on the one guy that's not doing what I want him to do. And isn't that what we do in life? Well, I like 99 things about that guy, but there's this one thing that drives me nuts. How about the 99 good things? If you ignore an evil man, he'll get angry. So every day, the anger builds. And he sees this one guy, Mordecai, refuses to bow. And it makes him angry. And since he's so narcissistic, he has to deal with this. He's got to make sure everybody bows. So it leads us to point 4. If you anger an evil man, he will pursue revenge. If you anger an evil man, he will pursue revenge. So what does it say? Verse 5, when Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow down or pay homage to him, Haman was filled with fury, but he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone. What does he want? He just doesn't want Mordecai to pay. He wants every Jew to pay. That's how angry this guy is. Because now he's moved from, I want to get even with you, to I want to get revenge. This guy legit takes it to a whole nother level, which is, I not only want to destroy Mordecai, but anybody who's like Mordecai, which is any Jew. It's anti-Semitism. He wants to destroy an entire race over one dude. He's Hitler. But I think even worse, because it's Hitler thought that their race was superior. This guy's just trying to get revenge. How dark are you if you just want to not only hurt the person that's not doing what you want them to do, but wipe out his family and anybody that's associated with him as well? Justice is a reasonable desire. Like if I'm being treated unjustly, or you're being treated unjustly, it's not bad to want justice. That's why we have a justice system. That's why we have people who try to help justice serve. That's why we have police officers and we have lawyers and we have this system. And it's completely imperfect, but at least we're trying. And we're relying on the fact that we have a God who will make sure that all justice is served. But what happens to evil people is they want people to pay for the wrong against them, and they want to hurt anybody that's associated with them as well. It's just because revenge never satisfies. Like, talk to people who can't forgive. And maybe this person is paid for the injustice they did to them, but it's never enough. Because if you have revenge in your heart, it's never enough. You just don't want them to burn in hell. You want them to really burn in hell. And you want everybody that's associated with them to burn in hell too. That's revenge. And he's driven now by revenge. So what happens? Verse 6, and he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, So as they had made known to him the people of Mordecai, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews, the people of Mordecai, throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. So then verse 7, in the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is, they cast lots before Haman day after day, and they cast it month after month till the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. So what he does is I don't really understand exactly what's going on, but they are basically rolling dice to see when they're going to actually do this plan, which is to have all of the Jews killed. So they went to Vegas, and they're rolling the dice, and if it rolls sevens, is that a thing? If it rolls sevens, I'm really ignorant about this stuff. I understand slot machines and dice and all that, but I don't know what means what. But if it rolls an 8 or rolls a 10, then we'll do it in the 10th month. And they kind of settle on this thing, which is 12 months out, which is, there's a verse in Proverbs, I wish I'd have written it down, but basically it talks about how that, people cast their dice, but it's God that's working things out. And what God does here is he gives them 12 months to prepare. Like if he said it's going to happen in 2 weeks, they may not be able to prepare for what's coming. But since they have a whole year, God gives them time. So they decide on this 12. So then it says in verse 8, then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of every other people, and they do not keep the king's laws, so that it is not to the king's profit to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver, 10,000 talents of silver, where I lost my place, into the hands of those who have charge of the king's business, that they might put them into the king's treasure. So 10,000 talents. 1 talent is 75 pounds of silver. So math majors, 75 times 10,000 is what? A lot. It's 750,000, right? 750,000 pounds of silver. He says, if you let me kill all these people, then I will give you 750,000 pounds of silver. Now, what he's doing here is he's being real sneaky. Because remember from chapter 2, Ahasuerus is reeling from this conquest. War cost a lot of money. So he tried to conquer Greece, and he was defeated, and he spent all his money trying to do it. So Haman comes in, and he knows the king's struggling. So he comes in and he goes, look, there's these people. They're all troublemakers. We need to just eliminate them. And if you let me eliminate them, then I will pay you 750,000 talents of silver. Or 750,000 pounds of silver. 750 talents. Or 10,000 talents. 75. Let's just move on. See, the math trips me up all the time. Anyway. But the point is that he's trying to pay him off. Now, where's he going to get all that silver? Well, from all the people he kills. So number 5, if you enrich an evil man, he will misuse the money. If you enrich an evil man, he will misuse the money. Well, we need Exodus 18:21 is a verse we need to read to all politicians. Moreover, look for able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe. And place such men over the people as chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. If we would just have people in leadership who would do this, who fear God, trustworthy, and hate a bribe, our country would be a different place. Because if you enrich an evil man, he will misuse the money. And this is what Haman, because if you read on, verse 11, the king then said to Haman, this sounds good to me, the money is given to you, the people also, to do with them as it seems good to you. So he goes, basically, I'm giving you a blank check, man. You do whatever you want with it. And I know that we're close on time, and I need to land the plane. But let me tell you this. I just want to challenge that. I said earlier that you find out about a man when you give him power and you give him money. And this is what Paul said to Timothy. He said, teach your people in your churches this. As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. It's okay to enjoy your house. It's a gift from God. People get hung. If you've got a lot of money, you shouldn't feel guilty. But a lot of people do. Okay, well, God gave you that money because he could trust you with it. So enjoy it. But also he says, do this, though. That they do good, that you be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, thus storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the future, so that they may lay hold of that which is truly life. The problem to me that I have a lot of times with government is they have all of this tax money coming in, and government is supposed to help the people, not hurt the people. And man, just so often they're just funding their pet projects, or they're doing stuff that it's unethical or wrong. We need people who use their wealth to take care of other people, to help others. We need to do that. We need to be a blessing to the people around us. So if you enrich an evil man, he will misuse the money. And then the last thing, number 6, I want you to notice what happens in the rest of the chapter. So what they do in verses 12 is they send this decree out. Then the king's scribe were summoned on the 13th day of the first month, and an edict according to all that Haman commanded was written to the king's satraps and to the governors over all the provinces, and to the officials of the people, to every province in his own script, and every people in his own language. It was written in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed with the king's signet ring. Letters were sent by courier to all the king's province with instructions to destroy, to kill, to annihilate all Jews, young and old, women and children, in one day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their goods. A copy of the document was to be issued as a decree in every province by the proclamation to all the people to be ready for that day. The couriers went out hurriedly by order of the king, and the decree was issued in Susa, the citadel, and the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Susa was thrown into confusion. So, I mean, imagine what would happen in our country if something like this happened. Because you have to understand, there's literally probably millions of Jews. There's a lot of Jews. So let's say a decree went out. 1 year from now, if you are English descent, we're going to kill you. And we're going to take your stuff. That'd be a little troubling proclamation. Would it not? Number 6, if you enable an evil man, he will discourage the people. If you give an evil man unlimited power, he will discourage the people. That line, last line there, is really important when he says, the city of Susa was thrown into confusion. Proverbs says this, when the righteous increase, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people groan. The king and Haman are clueless to what they have just done, because that last sentence is not insignificant when it says the city of Susa was thrown into confusion. Because there's a lot of people who look, they don't believe what the Jews believed, but they're good. They were good people, good neighbors, and now they're all going to die. So these aren't God-fearing people that all of a sudden came to Jesus. But they're troubled because they have a leader who puts out such an irresponsible edict. And look, it's the law of the Medes and Persians. So it's going to happen. Remember I told you earlier, the law of the Medes and Persians was non-negotiable. If it became law, if the king put his stamp on it, it was going to happen. And this is going to happen. These Jews are going to be killed. And that's why God had to get Esther in the palace. That's why he's working out his whole plan. And I want to read what Irving Jensen said about that last line. He says, the last phrase of chapter 3 is significant. But in the King James, it says, the city Shushan was perplexed. Not only the Jews, but non-Jews reacted to this outrageous example of violence. Sometimes the masses are wrong, but not always. Here was a situation where a king and his high minister were an erring minority with an extensive authority. But all people, nations and individuals alike, must reckon with the highest authority, God. The king's decree was issued and posted, but the King of Kings would have the last word. And I just want you to remember that, because sometimes it's very easy, particularly if you're involved in politics or you follow it closely, to get really discouraged at the state of our country and the state of our future. But let me just tell you, the King of Kings will have the last word. Okay? So rest in that. Rest in that. It's just like around here, come election time, you can just feel the tension rise. And what often it tells us is that our hope is in this. No, our hope is in the Lord. And that's why when things maybe don't go our way, we hope in the Lord. Because ultimately, the King of Kings will rule and reign. We have read the end of the book. We know who wins. Let's keep our hope in him, okay? So yes, it's bad when evil people get in control. But you know what? God can take evil people and turn them on their heads. The heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he wants. So God can take evil men and make sure that they get what's coming to them in this life and for sure in the next. So rest in that. Okay? All right, let's go to the Lord in prayer.